Welcome back to Sera's Werewolf Romance collection, where the alphas are possessive and the omegas, and their pets, run the show. Quick question for the pack before we dive into today's chaos. Where in the world are you tuning in from right now? Let me know in the comments, and drop a moon emoji if you should be sleeping, or a rat/mouse emoji if you own a pet that is currently plotting a heist against you. Today we have a special one. It's high stakes, it's hilarious, and it involves a terrified architect, a very grumpy alpha king, and a ferret with a criminal record. But before we start, if you want to support the channel and get early access to spicy stories like this one, hit that join button down below. It helps us keep the lights on and the wolf pack fed. Now, take a deep breath. The heat is hitting, and the king is waiting. Let's read. Chapter 1. The rain in Iron City didn't wash things clean. It just made the grime slicker. Anna Blair adjusted the strap of her canvas bag, shielding her eyes against the drizzle as she navigated the muddy lot of the unfinished Greenspire project. As a landscape architect, she was used to mud. She was used to arguing with contractors who thought permeable paving was a suggestion rather than a requirement. She was not, however, used to her blood suddenly feeling like it had been replaced with liquid magma. It hit her mid-step. A cramp, sharp and vicious, twisted inside her abdomen, doubling her over. She gasped, dropping her heavy sketchbook into a puddle. No. She checked her phone. The calendar notification mocked her. She had taken her suppressant tea this morning. She was meticulous about it. But as the heat rolled over her in a suffocating wave, her vision swimming, she remembered the herbal shop owner mentioning a new blend. That hack. The scent hit the air an instant later. It wasn't subtle. It was an explosion of wild jasmine and petrichor, the sharp, sweet smell of flowers blooming violently after a storm. In the heavy, damp air of the industrial district, it was a beacon. A low growl emanated from the alleyway to her left. Anna froze. The hairs on her arms stood up, not from the cold rain, but from a primal lizard-brain terror. She looked up. Two pairs of eyes, reflecting the streetlights in shades of sickly yellow, watched her from the shadows. Shifters. Unmated, unhinged, and likely rogue. "Run," she whispered to herself. She scrambled backward, abandoning her ruined sketchbook in the mud, and bolted toward the street where she'd parked. Her boots slammed against the wet pavement, splashing oily water up her denim overalls. "Hey, sweetheart!" a voice called out, followed by a jagged, barking laugh. "You smell good enough to eat!" More footsteps joined the first. Claws skittered on concrete. Anna's breath tore at her throat. She fumbled for the keys in her pocket, her fingers trembling so hard she nearly dropped them. She could see her car, Bumble, the bright yellow 2012 Volkswagen Beetle, parked under a flickering light. It looked like a haven, a round, yellow fortress. She reached the car, her trembling fingers slipping. She jammed the key into the lock and twisted, hearing the mechanism click. She grabbed the handle and yanked. Nothing. "No, no, no," she hissed, yanking again. The key slipped from her sweating fingers and clattered onto the dark, wet pavement. But she didn't have time to search for it. The passenger door handle was stuck. It always stuck. It was a quirk she usually laughed about, a mechanical hiccup that required a specific, forceful bump from her hip to disengage. But in her panic, her coordination was shot. She slammed her hip against the metal, but the angle was wrong. The door remained fused shut. The footsteps were close now, heavy, predatory. Inside her canvas bag, Mochi, her sable mask ferret whom she took everywhere, shifted nervously, scratching at the heavy fabric. He sensed the danger before she did. "I can't get in," she realized with horror. A shadow detached itself from the gloom. A man, scruffy and hulking, his eyes flashing amber. He lunged. Anna didn't think. She abandoned Bumble. She couldn't trap herself inside a glass bubble that wouldn't open. She spun around and sprinted toward the main avenue, praying for a police cruiser, a taxi, anything. She ran blindly, her chest heaving, the scent of jasmine pouring off her like smoke. She rounded the corner of a massive glass building, her boots slipping on the wet sidewalk. She looked back for a split second to see if they were gaining. She didn't see the man stepping out of the building's rear exit until she slammed into him with the force of a car crash. Chapter 2. The impact was like hitting a brick wall. Anna bounced off the man's chest, the air leaving her lungs in a wheezing gasp. She would have hit the wet pavement if a massive hand hadn't shot out, gripping her arm with bruising force to keep her upright. "Watch where you are!" The voice was deep, vibrating through the hand connected to her arm. Then he stopped. Anna looked up, rain plastering her messy chestnut hair to her face. The man was enormous. He wore a suit that probably cost more than her entire college tuition, the fabric dark and expensive, straining across shoulders that were terrifyingly broad. His hair was jet black, cropped short, and his eyes were storm gray, swirling with a sudden violent gold. He inhaled sharply. The smell coming off him hit Anna like a physical blow. Burnt cedar and crisp snow. It was cold, sharp, and dangerously masculine. It cut through her heat haze like a knife. "Mine." His voice dropped to a growl that wasn't human. Before Anna could process the terrifying realization that she had just run into an alpha, the mob caught up. 10 of them. They spilled around the corner, skidding to a halt on the wet asphalt. They were a mix of rogues and street thugs, their eyes glazed with the biological imperative driven by Anna's scent. They were drooling, their postures hunched, ready to fight for the prize. "Hand her over, suit," the leader snarled, stepping forward. He started to shift, his jaw elongating, teeth popping out. The man holding Anna didn't flinch. He didn't even look at the leader. He looked at Anna, his gaze sweeping over her terrified face, the pulse jumping in her throat, and the ferret poking its head out of her canvas bag, hissing at the approaching wolves. The Alpha King, Oscar Reaves, turned his head slowly toward the mob. He didn't shift. He didn't raise a fist. He simply let his presence expand. The air in the alleyway grew instantly heavy, pressurizing like the inside of a submarine diving too deep. "Everyone out!" The command didn't just echo, it detonated. It was an alpha voice of such catastrophic power that the windows of a parked sedan nearby shattered inward. The effect on the street wolves was immediate. The leader collapsed to his knees, whining in pain as the sonic authority crushed his will. The others scrambled backward, tripping over their own feet, tails tucked between their legs. The lust in their eyes was replaced by primal terror. They didn't run. They crawled, desperate to escape the blast radius of a king's wrath. In seconds, the alley was empty. Oscar looked down at Anna. The gold in his eyes was receding, but the gray was turbulent. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't introduce himself. "You smell like chaos," he grumbled. He bent down and scooped her up into his arms as if she weighed nothing. Anna squeaked, instinctively clutching his lapels. "Put me down!" she managed to wheeze, though the heat was making her head spin. "Not a chance," Oscar replied, striding toward a matte black armored SUV idling at the curb. "You're a walking target." He yanked the rear door open and deposited her onto the pristine black leather seats. As he leaned in to buckle her, ignoring her feeble, swatting hands, Mochi the ferret hissed at him, baring tiny needle teeth. Oscar paused, staring at the long, furry creature. "If that rat bites my Italian silk tie, I will turn it into a keychain." He slammed the door, locking them both inside the armored silence. Chapter 3. The ride to the Sanctum Tower was a blur of city lights and Anna trying not to hyperventilate. The interior of the SUV smelled like him, cedar and cold air, and it was making her biology scream. When they arrived, Oscar didn't use the front entrance. He drove into a private underground garage, bypassing the security checkpoint with a scan of his platinum signet ring against a sensor. He carried her again. Anna was too far gone to protest this time. The heat was peaking, turning her blood to fire. She felt delirious, her cheek pressed against the rough, expensive wool of his suit jacket. "Hot," she mumbled, tugging at the collar of her flannel shirt. "I know," Oscar said, his voice tight. "We're almost there." They shot up 80 floors in a private elevator. The doors opened to a penthouse that looked less like a home and more like a museum of modern isolation. Floor-to-ceiling glass walls looked out over the rain-slicked city. Everything was black, chrome, or gray. Oscar marched down a hallway, kicking open a heavy oak door. He deposited Anna onto a massive bed in what was clearly a guest suite. "Stay," he ordered. Anna curled into a ball, clutching her stomach. "It hurts." Oscar stood in the doorway, his hand gripping the frame so hard the wood groaned. His knuckles were white. The scent in the room was overwhelming. Jasmine and petrichor saturating the air, calling to his wolf, demanding he claim her. He took a step forward, his eyes flashing gold. Anna looked up at him, her hazel eyes glassy. "Please." She didn't know what she was asking for. A glass of water? A doctor? Him? Oscar seemed to physically wrench himself back. A muscle in his jaw ticked violently. "I cannot be in here with you. Not right now." He backed out, hitting a panel on the wall. The heavy door slid shut, with the heavy thud of a magnetic lock engaging. "Oscar!" she cried out, panic flaring. "I am locking it for your safety." His voice came through the door, muffled but firm. "And for mine." Inside the room, Anna stripped off her heavy boots and curled under the duvet, riding out the waves of fever. Outside, in the hallway, the Alpha King slid down to the floor. He sat with his back against the door, his long legs sprawled out on the hardwood. He listened to her whimpers, his chest heaving as he fought the instinct to tear the door down and comfort her. He reached out, his fingers digging into the pristine white drywall opposite the doorframe. He squeezed. The plaster crumbled like chalk under his grip, leaving 4 deep, jagged gouges in the wall. He stared at the destruction, his breathing ragged, and waited for the dawn. Chapter 4. Silence. That was the first thing Anna noticed when she woke up. The roaring in her ears was gone. The fire in her blood had simmered down to a dull, aching throb, like a muscle pulled after a long run. She sat up. She was still in her clothes, denim overalls and flannel, though they felt grimy and twisted. Mochi was asleep on the pillow next to her head, looking like a furry comma. She looked around. The room was luxurious, cold, and impersonal. "Hello?" she croaked. Her throat felt like sandpaper. She slid off the bed, her legs wobbling only slightly. Hunger hit her instantly, a ravenous, hollow ache in her stomach. Shifting or enduring a heat cycle burned thousands of calories. She needed protein. Now. She walked to the door and turned the handle. Locked. Seriously? She muttered. She jiggled it again. It was a maglock system. There was no keyhole, just a red light on the panel. Anna wasn't the type to wait for rescue. She patted her pockets. Her phone was gone, likely lost in the mud or the SUV, but she still had a few hairpins clipped to her messy bun. She pulled one out, stripped the plastic tip with her teeth, and jammed it into the emergency release seam of the panel. She jiggled it. She twisted it. The pin snapped. Useless high-tech garbage. She kicked the door. A beep sounded, and the light turned green. The door slid open. Oscar stood there. He looked tired. He had changed out of the suit into a black t-shirt and gray sweatpants, which was jarring. Seeing the Alpha King in casual wear was like seeing a shark in a sweater. He was pushing a silver room service cart. "You're awake," he said, his voice flat. "You locked me in," Anna accused, crossing her arms. She tried to look intimidating, but she was 5 feet 4 inches and barefoot. "I quarantined a biological hazard," Oscar corrected. He pushed the cart into the room. The smell of seared meat wafted up, and Anna's stomach gave a treacherous, loud growl. Oscar's lips twitched, a microscopic, almost smile. He lifted the silver dome. Underneath was a massive ribeye steak, cooked rare, dripping with juice. No sides, no garnish, just meat. "Eat," he commanded. "Your metabolic rate is crashing." Anna didn't argue. She sat at the small table and attacked the steak with a fork and knife, abandoning her manners. Oscar watched her, leaning against the doorframe, his arms crossed over his chest. "Where is my car?" she asked between bites. "Recovered. It's being assessed," Oscar said. "Where is your phone?" "Dropped it," she said. "Look, thanks for the rescue and the steak. But I need to go. I have a deadline on the roof garden project for the plaza." "You aren't going anywhere," Oscar said calmly. Anna froze, fork halfway to her mouth. "Excuse me?" "The wolves that chased you weren't random," Oscar said, his eyes darkening to storm gray. "They were organized. Until I find out who sent them, you are under protective custody." "Custody?" Anna stood up, slamming the fork down. "I am not a criminal. You can't just keep me here." "I am the king," Oscar stated, as if stating the sky was blue. "I can do whatever I want." Anna grabbed the nearest object, a decorative velvet throw pillow from the armchair, and hurled it at him with perfect aim. It hit him square in the chest with a soft poof. Oscar didn't even blink. He looked down at the pillow on the floor, then back up at her, one eyebrow raised. "Point taken," he said dryly, "but the door stays locked." Chapter 5. The silence in the guest suite was heavy, broken only by the scrape of Anna's fork against the fine china. She hadn't realized how starving she was until the first bite of the rare ribeye hit her tongue. It wasn't just hunger. It was a biological void demanding to be filled. She ate with a focus that would have been embarrassing in polite society, but Oscar didn't seem to mind. He just watched her, his gray eyes tracking every movement like a hawk watching a field mouse. When the plate was clean, Anna set the silverware down with a definitive clink. She wiped her mouth with a linen napkin and fixed Oscar with a hard stare. "I need a phone," she said. "Now." Oscar didn't move from the doorframe. His arms were still crossed over his chest, the black t-shirt stretching tight across his biceps. "No." "No?" Anna stood up, the adrenaline spiking again. My uncle is probably tearing the city apart looking for me. I've been gone for... She glanced at the digital clock on the bedside table. 24 hours. He thinks I'm dead. If you make a call on an unsecured line, the people who hunted you will trace it, Oscar said, his voice dropping to that low, vibrating rumble that made the hair on her arm stand up. They have tech that bypassed my perimeter sensors. They are listening. Then give me a secure line, Anna countered, stepping toward him. She felt small next to him. He was a mountain of a man, radiating heat and the scent of burnt cedar. But she refused to back down. Or I start screaming. I have a very loud scream. And I bet your soundproofing isn't perfect. Oscar's jaw tightened. He looked at her, really looked at her, assessing the stubborn set of her jaw and the fire in her hazel eyes. He seemed to realize that while he could command an army, he couldn't command her to stop worrying about her family. He reached into the pocket of his sweatpants and pulled out a sleek black device. It wasn't a smartphone. It was a tactical satellite phone, rugged and blocky. "One call," he ordered, handing it to her. "Speakerphone. If you mention this location, I end the call." Anna snatched the phone. Her fingers trembled as she dialed the number she knew by heart. It rang once. "Yeah?" The voice was gravelly, tired, and laced with suppressed violence. "Uncle Ben?" Anna's voice cracked. "Anna?" The sound of a chair scraping against concrete echoed through the line. "Where the hell are you? I've called every hospital and precinct in Iron City. If you're hurt, tell me who did it so I can bring a shovel." "I'm okay," Anna said quickly, shooting a glance at Oscar. "I'm safe. My heat hit early. I had a bad reaction to the suppressants. I'm staying with a friend until it clears." "A friend?" Ben's tone went instantly suspicious. "Which friend? You don't have friends with secure satellite lines, kid. Who is he?" Oscar stepped forward, looming over the phone. "I can't say," Anna said, sticking to the deal. "But I'm safe. I promise. I just need a few days to stabilize." "Put him on," Ben growled. Anna hesitated, then held the phone out to Oscar. Oscar took it. "This is Reaves." There was a pause on the other end, heavy and dangerous. "Reaves? As in the Alpha King?" Ben's laugh was a dark, barking sound. "Listen to me, Your Highness. If my niece comes back with so much as a scratch, I will drive my truck through the front lobby of that glass toothpick you call a tower. Do you understand me?" Oscar's expression didn't change, but a flicker of respect passed through his eyes. "She is under my protection. No one touches her, not even me." "They better not," Ben snapped. The line went dead. Oscar handed the phone back to Anna, or tried to. She didn't take it. She was looking at him, processing his words. "Not even me." "Thank you," she whispered, the fight draining out of her. "Don't thank me," Oscar said, turning back to the door. "Thank me when you're alive at the end of the week. Now, there is a bathroom through that door. There are clothes in the closet. Burn the ones you're wearing. They smell like fear." Chapter 6. The shower was scalding, exactly how she needed it. Anna scrubbed her skin until it was pink, trying to wash away the mud, the sweat, and the lingering phantom sensation of being hunted. When she stepped out, wrapped in a towel that was fluffier than any she had ever owned, she found the clothes Oscar had promised. They weren't hers. They were his. A black hoodie that swallowed her whole, and a pair of gray drawstring sweatpants that she had to roll up 5 times at the waist. She looked ridiculous, like a child playing dress-up, but the fabric smelled like him. Crisp snow and cedar, and God help her, It made her wolf purr with contentment. Mochi was awake and currently trying to drag a silver spoon from the room service cart under the bed. Anna scooped him up, tucking him into the oversized front pocket of the hoodie. "Behave," she murmured to the ferret. She walked to the door. The maglock was green. She took a breath, steeling herself, and stepped out into the hallway. She stopped dead. Directly across from her door, the pristine white drywall was destroyed. 4 deep, jagged gouges tore through the plaster, ripping down to the metal studs beneath. Dust and crumbled gypsum littered the expensive carpet. Anna stared at the marks. They were at shoulder height for a man of Oscar's size. She reached out, tracing the edge of a claw mark. It wasn't the erratic damage of a fight. It was the desperate, controlled destruction of someone trying to keep themselves from doing something worse. He had stood here, last night, while she was inside, crying out in delirium, her scent flooding the hallway, driving his instincts to the breaking point. He hadn't entered. He hadn't taken advantage. He had stood guard and taken his aggression out on the architecture rather than touch her without permission. A lump formed in her throat. She had called him a brute. She had thrown a pillow at him. But the evidence on the wall told a different story. "I see you found my remodeling efforts." Anna jumped. Oscar was standing at the end of the hall. He had showered too. His hair was damp and he had changed into a fresh black button-down shirt, though the sleeves were rolled up to his elbows. "You stayed," Anna said softly, her hand still hovering over the gouges. Oscar looked at the wall, then at her. He didn't look ashamed, just resigned. "I told you. You were under my protection." "You could have left," she said. "Gone to another floor." "And left you unguarded?" Oscar shook his head. "No." He walked toward her, stopping a respectful distance away. "We need to discuss terms. You can't leave the tower. My security team has confirmed the street wolves were hired guns. Until I find the buyer, you are grounded." "I can't just sit here," Anna argued, though the bite was gone from her voice. "I have a business. I have clients." "Work from here," Oscar said. "I have a secure server. You can run your CAD software from the library on the 79th floor. I'll have your laptop retrieved from your apartment." "You'd do that?" Anna asked. "I need you safe," Oscar said simply. "If that means turning my library into a greenhouse for you to design gardens, so be it." Anna looked at the claw marks one last time, then nodded. "Okay, I stay. But I pick the playlist while I work." Oscar's mouth quirked. "Don't push your luck, Blair." Chapter 7. The War Room. On the 85th floor was a cold, windowless bunker designed for one thing: absolute secrecy. A massive holographic table dominated the center, currently displaying a grainy, looped video feed of the alleyway where Anna had been attacked. Oscar stood at the head of the table. His playful banter with Anna was gone. In its place was the terrifying, cold calculation of the Alpha King. "Pause," he commanded. The hologram froze. Oscar pointed to the shadows in the upper right corner. "There. The camera cuts for 3 seconds before the wolves engage. That's not a glitch. That's a loop." He looked around the table at his 3 top advisors. First was Garrick, his head of strategy, an older wolf with graying temples and a permanent scowl. Second was Alara, his financial officer, sharp, blonde, and tapping a pen against her tablet. Third was Darius, the pack enforcer, a massive brute who barely fit in his chair. "The street cameras were hacked," Oscar said, his voice low and dangerous. "Standard municipal encryption, but the timing was surgical. Whoever did this knew exactly when Miss Blair's suppressants would fail. They knew her route. Maybe she was just careless, Darius grunted. Omegas are fragile. Bad luck. There is no such thing as luck, Oscar snapped. Only variables we haven't identified. He zoomed in on the lead wolf in the footage. Look at their formation. Street trash attacks in a swarm. These wolves flanked her. They cut off her exit to the car. This was a tactical extraction. You think someone inside the pact helped them? Alara asked, stopping her tapping. That's a heavy accusation, Oscar. I think, Oscar said, leaning his hands on the table, the muscles in his forearms flexing, that someone wants a leverage point against me, and they thought a vulnerable Omega would be easy pickings. He scanned their faces. Garrick looked bored. Alara looked concerned. Darius looked annoyed. None of them looked guilty. But Oscar knew better. His parents had been killed because a trusted lieutenant opened the back gate. He trusted no one. I want a full audit of the security logs, Oscar ordered. Every access code used in the last 48 hours. If a janitor so much as sneezes in the server room, I want to know about it. And the girl? Garrick asked. Is she staying? She stays, Oscar said, his tone final. She is the only witness I have, and she is under my personal protection. As the advisors filed out, Oscar watched them. One of them was lying. He could feel it in his gut, a cold, twisting knot. He just didn't know which one yet. And until he did, Anna was sleeping in the lion's den. Chapter 8. By day 3, cabin fever had set in. Anna had redesigned the Sanctum Tower's roof garden 3 times on the digital tablet Oscar had provided. She had reorganized the books in the library by color, which annoyed Oscar immensely. She had even tried to teach Mochi to fetch, which resulted in the ferret stealing a $500 fountain pen and hiding it in the sofa. She was pacing the living room of the penthouse when Oscar walked in. He looked exhausted. Dark circles bruised the skin under his eyes. You're vibrating, he noted, dropping his keys on the counter. I'm bored, Anna groaned, throwing her head back. I haven't punched anything in 3 days. I'm losing my edge. Oscar paused. Punched anything? I box, Anna said. Uncle Ben owns the Iron Glove. I practically grew up in the ring. I need to hit something. Oscar studied her. He needed to get out of the tower, too. The search for the mole was hitting dead ends, and his wolf was restless. Get your shoes, he said. We're going out. The Iron Glove smelled exactly like Anna remembered. Stale sweat, leather, and wintergreen oil. It was a grimy, beautiful dungeon of a gym located in the basement of an old brick building in the South Ward. When Oscar walked in, the entire gym went silent. The rhythmic thwack, thwack, thwack of speed bags stopped. Heavy lifters froze mid-rep. Oscar stood out like a sore thumb. He was wearing a charcoal gray suit, pristine and tailored, looking like he was there to foreclose on the building rather than work out. Well, well, a gravelly voice echoed from the ring. Uncle Ben leaned over the ropes. He was wearing a gray t-shirt stained with sweat, his bald head shining under the harsh fluorescent lights. His nose, broken so many times it zigzagged, twitched as he looked at the Alpha King. If it isn't the landlord, Ben deadpanned. You look like you're attending a funeral, Highness. You stiffen the shoulders? Oscar walked up to the ring, his expression unreadable. I hear this is the best place to learn how to fight dirty. My technique is too refined. Ben snorted. He looked at Anna, who was grinning from the sidelines, Mochi's head poking out of her hoodie. "You bring him here to get humbled, kid?" "He needs to loosen his tie, Ben," Anna called out. "He's wound tighter than a snare drum." Oscar didn't say a word. He simply took off his jacket, folded it meticulously, and set it on a clean stool. He unbuttoned his cuffs and rolled them up. Then he loosened his tie. "Spar?" Oscar asked. Ben grinned, revealing a missing molar. "Your funeral, King. Get in." It wasn't a fair fight. Oscar was an alpha, faster, stronger, lethal. But he held back. He tried to box with textbook precision, keeping his guard up, snapping jabs. Ben didn't box. He brawled. He stepped inside Oscar's guard, absorbing a hit to the shoulder to deliver a hook to Oscar's ribs that sounded like a gunshot. "Too stiff!" Ben yelled, dancing back. "You fight like a robot. Feel the rhythm, don't calculate it." Oscar frowned, rubbing his side. He wasn't used to people actually hitting him. Most wolves cowered. Ben treated him like a rookie. For the next 10 minutes, the gym watched in awe as the Alpha King got a lesson in grit. By the end of it, Oscar was sweating, his perfect hair messy, his shirt clinging to his chest. He landed a solid cross that knocked Ben back into the ropes, but he didn't follow up with a kill shot. He stepped back, breathing hard, then laughed, wiping a smudge of blood from his lip. "Not bad, for a suit." Oscar smirked, a real, genuine expression that transformed his face. "You have a solid left hook, old man." Anna watched from the corner, pulling Oscar's oversized black hoodie back over her sweat-dampened t-shirt. Her heart did a strange flutter in her chest. Seeing Oscar like this, sweaty, human, and smiling, was dangerous. It made her want to step into the ring with him, and not just to fight. Chapter 9. The ride from the gym was quiet, but the air inside the armored SUV felt charged. Oscar drove with one hand on the wheel, his other arm resting stiffly against his side. Every time the vehicle hit a pothole in the Iron City pavement, his jaw tightened. Uncle Ben's hook to the ribs had left a mark, even on an Alpha King. "You're hurting," Anna said, watching him from the passenger seat. She was still drowning in his oversized black hoodie, Mochi asleep in the front pocket like a lump of warm dough. "I'm fine," Oscar grunted, staring straight ahead. "Your uncle hits like a sledgehammer wrapped in concrete. I'll heal by morning." "He likes you," Anna murmured, looking out the window as the city lights blurred by. "He only hits people he respects. Everyone else he just ignores." Oscar didn't reply, but his grip on the steering wheel loosened slightly. He turned the SUV into an unmarked industrial complex on the edge of the Shadowpack's territory. The sign on the gate simply read, "Private Property," but the security cameras swiveled to track them as they approached. "Where are we?" Anna asked, sitting up. "My private mechanic," Oscar said, the gate sliding open. "They towed your car here yesterday. The assessment is done." They pulled into a brightly lit bay that smelled of grease, rubber, and high-octane fuel. In the center of the garage, surrounded by millions of dollars worth of dismantled supercars, sat Bumble. The bright yellow 2012 Volkswagen Beetle looked like a bruised canary in a hawk's nest. Anna gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. The car was destroyed. All the windows were shattered, the safety glass glittering like diamonds on the concrete floor. The tires were slashed, but it was the hood that made Anna's stomach drop. Someone had taken spray paint, blood red, and marked a jagged, crossed-out circle on the yellow metal. It wasn't a gang tag. It was a target. "Oh my God," Anna whispered. She scrambled out of the SUV before Oscar could stop her. She ran to the car, her hands hovering over the ruined paint. "Bumble." Oscar stepped up behind her. He didn't touch her, but his presence was a warm, solid wall at her back. His scent, burnt cedar and crisp snow, flared with suppressed rage. "It wasn't random vandalism," Oscar said, his voice low and dangerous. "They didn't strip it for parts. The stereo is still there. This was a message." Anna walked around the vehicle, glass crunching under her sneakers. She opened the driver's door, or tried to. It fell off its hinges with a screech of twisted metal. Tears pricked her eyes. It wasn't just a car. It was the first thing she had bought with her own money after leaving her old pack. It was her freedom, and now it was trash. "I can't fix this," she choked out, wiping her eyes with the sleeve of Oscar's hoodie. "The insurance won't cover this kind of damage. They'll total it." Oscar watched her shoulders shake. He was terrible at comfort. He knew how to break bones and negotiate treaties, not how to handle crying women. He awkwardly reached out and placed a large, warm hand on her shoulder. "I will find who did this," he promised, his voice rough. "And I will make them pay for every scratch." "I loved this stupid car," Anna sniffled, leaning into his touch despite herself. "It's not stupid," Oscar said softly. "We'll fix it." "It's totaled, Oscar. Look at the chassis." "I don't care about the chassis," Oscar stated with the arrogance of a man who owned half the city. "If I have to rebuild the entire engine block from scratch, it will drive again. Now come here. You're shivering." Chapter 10. The next morning, the mood in the Sanctum Tower was strictly professional. Or at least, Anna was trying to make it so. She sat in the library on the 79th floor, a sprawling room with floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a dizzying view of Oakhaven City. Oscar had been true to his word. A high-end workstation had been set up on a mahogany table, complete with her laptop, retrieved by his security team, and a massive digital drafting tablet. Anna swiped her stylus across the screen, frowning at the blueprints Oscar had uploaded. Mochi was currently helping by trying to drag a heavy brass paperweight off the desk. The elevator chimed, and Oscar walked in. He looked refreshed. The bruising on his ribs likely faded to a dull ache thanks to his alpha healing. He was back in his armor, a sharp navy blue suit that fit him perfectly. "You've been staring at that section for 2 hours, Oscar noted, placing a cup of coffee on the coaster next to her. "Is it that bad?" "It's a disaster," Anna said, not looking up. "Who designed this roof garden? A landscape architect or a sadistic goat?" Oscar took a sip of his own coffee. "A very expensive firm from the capital. They said it was avant-garde." "It's a security nightmare," Anna corrected. She tapped the screen, highlighting a section of ornamental hedges. "Look at this. These hedges are 6 feet tall and dense. They block the line of sight from the security cameras on the perimeter. Anyone could hide behind them and have a clear shot at the terrace doors." She swiped to another layer. "And this meditative water feature? It's directly over the server room's ventilation shaft. One crack in the lining, and your entire data center drowns." Oscar leaned over her shoulder, his chest brushing against the back of her chair. The proximity made Anna's breath hitch, but she kept her stylus steady. "I didn't hire you for charity, Anna," Oscar said quietly, looking at the plans. "I hired you because you see things others miss. My security team looked at these plans for weeks and saw pretty flowers. You looked at them for 2 hours and found a sniper nest." Anna looked up at him, surprised. She had assumed this was just busy work to keep the prisoner occupied. "So you want me to raise it?" she asked. "I want you to make it beautiful," Oscar said, meeting her gaze. "But I also want you to make it a fortress. Can you do that? Anna smirked, spinning her stylus. I can turn this death trap into a sanctuary, but I'm deleting the koi pond. It's tacky. Deal, Oscar said. He hesitated, then pulled a creamy envelope from his jacket pocket. There is one more thing. He slid the envelope across the table. It was heavy, embossed with gold leaf. What is this? Anna asked. The annual Alpha Summit Gala, Oscar said, looking almost pained. It's tomorrow night. Every major pack leader in the region will be there, including the ones who might be behind the attack on you. And I need a date, Oscar said, his expression stoic. Not for romance, for cover. I need someone who isn't part of my inner circle to watch the room, someone who notices details, like hedges that block cameras. Anna opened the envelope. The invitation was exorbitant. You want me to spy for you. I want you to be my eyes, Oscar corrected. Will you do it? Chapter 11. Absolutely not. Anna slid the invitation back across the mahogany table. I am not going to be your arm candy, Oscar. I don't do galas. I don't do small talk with people who think I'm biologically inferior because of my rank. And I certainly don't wear heels that cost more than my rent. Oscar didn't blink. It's a tactical necessity. The mole, the traitor inside my organization, will likely be there. If I go alone, they will be on guard. If I go with a date, they might underestimate me. They might slip up. Find someone else, Anna said, crossing her arms. Hire a model or a spy. I don't trust them, Oscar said, his voice dropping. I trust you. The words hung in the air, heavy and significant. Anna felt her resolve waver. He trusted her? After 3 days? Plus, Oscar added, playing his ace, Uncle Ben will be there as security for the neutral zone. He asked if you were coming. Anna groaned, dropping her head onto the desk. That is dirty, Reaves. Using family against me. Is that a yes? Fine, Anna muttered into the wood. But I have conditions. Name them. 1, Anna said, lifting her head. I pick the dress. No sparkles, no plunging necklines that scream, look at me! Done, Oscar said. 2, she continued. I am not leaving Mochi here. If the tower is compromised, I want him with me. Oscar stared at her. You want to bring a ferret to a black-tie gala? He's my support animal, Anna lied smoothly. Besides, he has a tiny tuxedo. It would be a crime not to use it. Oscar rubbed his temples, looking like he was regretting every life choice that led to this moment. Where would you even put him? Clutch, Anna said. I have an oversized vintage clutch. He sleeps in it. No one will know. If he bites a dignitary, Oscar warned, pointing a finger at her, I am feeding him to the wolves. He prefers chicken, Anna retorted. And 3, if anyone insults me, I am allowed to insult them back. I will not stand there and smile while some alpha priss talks down to me. Oscar's lips curled into a dangerous smile. Anna, if anyone insults you, I expect you to destroy them, verbally, of course. We don't want blood on the carpet. Speak for yourself, Anna mumbled, grabbing the invitation back. What time do we leave? 7, Oscar said, turning to leave. The stylist will be here at 4. And Anna? She looked up. Thank you. Chapter 12. The grand ballroom of the Obsidian Hotel was a cavern of crystal chandeliers, gold leaf, and the suffocating scent of power. Alphas, betas, and high-ranking omegas mingled in a sea of silk and velvet. The air vibrated with the low hum of posturing and politics. When the doors opened for the Alpha King, the room went quiet. Oscar Reaves stepped in, looking devastating in a tailored tuxedo that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. But for once, eyes didn't linger on him. They lingered on Anna. She wore a gown of deep forest green velvet, a shade that looked almost black until the light hit it. It was modest but structured, with sharp architectural lines that hugged her waist and flowed to the floor. The color matched Oscar's tie perfectly, a visual claim that was subtle yet undeniable. Her chestnut hair was swept up in a messy chic chignon secured with gold pins. She clutched a large, vintage beaded purse to her side with a white-knuckled grip. Inside, Mochi was fortunately asleep, likely drugged by the heavy meal of turkey Anna had fed him beforehand. "Breathe," Oscar whispered, offering her his arm. "You look formidable." "I feel like I'm wearing a curtain," Anna hissed back, though she took his arm. His bicep was rock hard beneath the fabric. "Everyone is staring." "Let them stare," Oscar murmured, guiding her down the stairs. "They're wondering who the hell you are." They navigated the room, Oscar introducing her simply as Miss Blair, the architect redesigning my sanctum. It was a power move, defining her by her brain, not her biology. Midway through the evening, a woman approached them. She was tall, blonde, and radiated an aggressive, cloying perfume of synthetic roses. "Oscar," the woman purred, placing a hand on his arm that lingered too long. "It's been ages." "Lady Sterling," Oscar nodded, his face impassive. "This is Anna Blair." The woman, Lady Sterling, a rival alpha from the Western Territories, looked Anna up and down with a sneer that could curdle milk. "An architect," Sterling laughed, a brittle sound. "How quaint. I suppose it's nice to have a hobby, dear. But don't you find the heavy lifting a bit much for an Omega? Your foundation seems a bit weak." It was a double entendre, insulting both her rank and her capability. Oscar stiffened, his jaw clenching. He opened his mouth to shred her, but Anna squeezed his arm. "I got this." Anna smiled. It was a sharp, dangerous smile. "Actually, Lady Sterling," Anna said, her voice clear and polite. "In architecture, we learn that visible, heavy lifting is a sign of poor design. True strength is in the internal structure. It supports the weight without needing to draw attention to itself with flashy facades." She let her gaze drift meaningfully to Sterling's heavily altered face and excessive diamond necklace. "Structural integrity is everything," Anna finished sweetly. "Without it, things just sag over time." The silence that followed was visceral. Oscar coughed to hide a laugh. Lady Sterling's mouth opened and closed like a fish. "Enjoy the evening," Oscar said, steering Anna away before Sterling could recover. Once they were out of earshot, Oscar leaned down, his breath warm against her ear. "Remind me never to get into a verbal war with you. That was lethal." "She started it," Anna said, patting her clutch as Mochi shifted inside. "Now, find me a waiter. I need champagne, and Mochi is waking up." Chapter 13. The orchestra swelled, filling the ballroom with a melody that was meant to be soothing, but felt increasingly like a countdown. Anna tightened her grip on her vintage beaded clutch, feeling Mochi shift restlessly inside. The ferret had woken up from his turkey-induced coma and was currently scratching at the silk lining, likely plotting a prison break. "Stop it," Anna whispered to her purse, earning a strange look from a passing waiter. Oscar stood beside her, his hand resting possessively on the small of her back. He was tense. His muscles were coiled beneath the fine wool of his tuxedo, rigid as steel cables. He wasn't enjoying the party. He was scanning the perimeter, his gray eyes darting from the exits to the mezzanine. "Relax," Anna murmured, leaning slightly into him. "You look like you're about to bite someone. It's bad for public relations." "I am about to bite someone," Oscar grumbled, though his thumb brushed soothingly against the velvet of her forest green gown. "Garrick is late, and Darius is missing from his post at the East Wing." "Maybe they're in the bathroom," Anna suggested. "Even alphas have bladders." Oscar opened his mouth to retort, but a waiter appeared at his elbow, balancing a tray of amber-colored drinks. The man was young, shaking slightly, his eyes fixed on the floor. "Champagne, sir?" the waiter mumbled. "No," Oscar said, turning to dismiss him. It happened in a blur of motion. The waiter stumbled, or feigned a stumble, and the tray tipped. A flute of liquid didn't just spill, it was thrown, splashing directly onto Oscar's chest and neck. The reaction was instantaneous. The liquid hissed as it hit Oscar's skin, sizzling like acid on a hot pan. The scent that rose wasn't alcohol. It was acrid, bitter, and terrifyingly familiar to anyone raised in the lore. Wolfsbane. Concentrated liquid extract. Oscar didn't scream. He made a choked, guttural sound, his hand flying to his throat. His knees buckled immediately, his massive frame turning into dead weight. "Oscar!" Anna gasped. She looped the strap of her beaded clutch tight around her wrist and lunged to catch him. She barely managed to break his fall. He was heavy, over 200 pounds of dense muscle, and he was going down hard. She jammed her shoulder under his armpit, the beaded purse swinging wildly against her hip, her knees trembling under the sudden load. "Don't touch it," Oscar wheezed, his face draining of color, sweat instantly beading on his forehead. "Burns." The paralysis was setting in fast. Wolfsbane disrupted the neural pathways of a shifter, shutting down motor functions and halting the healing factor. If it reached his heart, it would stop it. Heads were turning. The music faltered. "Get him up!" Anna hissed, panic flaring in her chest. She saw Lady Sterling watching from across the room, a predatory smile curling her lips. If Oscar showed weakness here, if he fell, the sharks would circle. "I can't," Oscar groaned, his legs dragging. "Legs gone." "You are the Alpha King," Anna growled into his ear, her voice trembling with effort. "You do not crawl. Walk, Oscar, or so help me God, I will drag you." She hauled him up, using every ounce of strength she had developed from hauling stone pavers and lumber. She hooked her arm around his waist, her fingers digging into the expensive fabric of his tuxedo. "Elevator," she commanded the stunned crowd. "Move!" They parted like the Red Sea, shocked by the ferocity of the small woman in the green velvet dress. Anna didn't wait for help. She dragged him, step by agonizing step, toward the gilded doors. Oscar was trying to help, fighting the paralysis with sheer willpower, but he was stumbling, his breathing ragged and wet. She slammed her hand against the call button. The doors slid open. She shoved him inside and hit the button for the penthouse. As the doors closed, shutting out the staring faces of the elite, Oscar collapsed completely. He hit the floor with a thud that shook the car. "Anna," he whispered, his eyes rolling back. "Poison." "I know," Anna said, falling to her knees beside him. She ripped his tie loose, the forest green silk tearing, and unbuttoned his shirt to see the angry red welts spreading across his chest. "Stay with me, Oscar. Do not dare die on me in an elevator." Chapter 14. The penthouse was silent except for the harsh, ragged sound of Oscar's breathing. Getting him from the elevator to the master bedroom had been a nightmare. Anna had essentially dragged him across the hardwood floor, ruining her velvet gown and likely scratching the finish, but she didn't care. She had hefted him onto the massive bed, his limbs heavy and useless. Now the room was freezing. She had cranked the AC down to its lowest setting. Wolfsbane caused a lethal spike in body temperature. The fever could boil his brain if she didn't keep him cool. "Cold," Oscar mumbled, trashing on the sheets. His skin was gray, clammy, yet radiating heat like a furnace. I know," Anna said, her voice shaking. She had stripped him of the ruined tuxedo. He was down to his boxer briefs, his body a map of scars and muscle, now marred by the angry, blistering rash where the poison had soaked in. She ran to the ensuite bathroom, soaking plush white towels in ice-cold water. She wrung them out and ran back, laying them across his chest, his forehead, and his neck. Steam literally rose from his skin. "No doctor," Oscar gasped, his hand flailing out to grip her wrist. His grip was weak, trembling. "No outsiders. Trust no one." "I'm not calling a doctor," Anna promised, peeling his fingers off her wrist gently. "I'm here. I've got you." She climbed onto the bed beside him, disregarding the propriety of it. She needed to monitor his heart rate. She placed a hand on his chest. It was beating erratic and fast. Thump, thump, pause, thump. Mochi, having crawled out of the clutch Anna had discarded on the bedroom floor, hopped onto the bed. The ferret chattered nervously, sniffing at Oscar's hand. Usually, Oscar would threaten the rat, but now he didn't even flinch. "Talk to me, Oscar," Anna commanded, replacing a warm towel with a fresh cold one. "Stay awake." "It's dark," Oscar slurred, his eyes squeezing shut. "Mom, Dad, I missed the gate. I didn't check the lock." Delirium. He was hallucinating. "You're not there," Anna said softly, brushing damp hair off his forehead. "You're safe. You're in the tower." "Lonely," Oscar whispered, the word cracking in the silence of the room. It was a sound so broken it made Anna's heart ache. "Top of the tower. Cold. Always cold." Tears pricked Anna's eyes. This domineering, terrifying man, who commanded armies and crushed dissent, was just a lonely boy who had built a fortress to keep everyone out so he wouldn't get hurt again. "You're not alone," Anna whispered, leaning down so her forehead touched his burning temple. "I'm right here. I'm not going anywhere." She lay beside him, using her own body, naturally cooler than his alpha furnace, to help regulate his temperature. She curled against his side, careful of the burns, and held him. "I've got you," she repeated, like a mantra against the dark. "Just breathe." Hours passed. The fever raged, crested, and then, as dawn broke over Iron City, began to break. Chapter 15. Sunlight filtered through the heavy curtains, casting long, dusty beams across the room. Oscar woke up slowly. The crushing weight on his chest was gone, replaced by a dull, throbbing ache in his muscles. His head felt like it had been stuffed with cotton, but his mind was clear. The paralysis had lifted. He blinked, focusing on the ceiling. He was in his bed. He was alive. He shifted, and a weight on his left arm made him freeze. Anna was asleep, curled up against his side. She was still wearing her green velvet gown, though it was wrinkled and stained with water and sweat. Her hair had come loose from the chignon, spilling in a messy chestnut wave across his shoulder. Her hand was resting flat over his heart. Oscar stared at her. He remembered flashes of the night, the fire in his veins, the terror of paralysis, and the voice that had anchored him. "I'm right here." She had dragged him. She had nursed him. She had guarded him while he was helpless. He moved his hand slowly, careful not to wake her, and brushed a thumb across her cheekbone. Her skin was soft, warm. Anna stirred. Her lashes fluttered, revealing hazel eyes that were groggy but instantly alert. "Oscar?" she whispered, pushing herself up on one elbow. "You're awake." "I am," he rasped. His voice sounded like gravel. You stayed." "I told you I would," Anna said, searching his face. She reached out, checking his temperature with the back of her hand. "Fever's gone. How do you feel?" "Like I was run over by a truck," Oscar admitted. He caught her hand as she pulled it away, holding it against his cheek. "You saved me, Anna." "You're too heavy," she joked weakly, though her breath hitched. "Next time, faint on a dolly." They fell silent. The air in the room shifted. It became heavy, charged with the static electricity of the bond that had been simmering between them for days. Oscar didn't let go of her hand. He pulled gently, and Anna didn't resist. She leaned in closer. Oscar's eyes drifted to her lips. His pupils dilated, the gray swirling with gold. "Anna." "Oscar," she breathed. He lifted his other hand to cup the back of her neck, his fingers tangling in her messy hair. He pulled her down. Their breath mingled, his scent of burnt cedar now laced with the sweetness of recovery, hers of jasmine and rain. It was inevitable. Gravity. Just as their lips were about to brush, a fraction of an inch of space remaining, a piercing shriek cut through the air. "Wee-oo, wee-oo!" Oscar flinched violently, his alpha instinct snapping him into combat mode. Anna jolted back, nearly falling off the bed. It wasn't a fire alarm. It was the secure line on the bedside table. The red phone. Oscar snarled, a sound of pure frustration, and grabbed the receiver. "What?" he roared. "Sir," the voice of his head of security crackled. "We have a situation at the perimeter. You need to see this." Oscar slammed the phone down, the moment shattered. He looked at Anna, his chest heaving. The regret in his eyes was palpable. "We aren't done," he promised, his voice dark. Chapter 16. 2 hours earlier. The warehouse was located in the rusting shipyard of the Eastern District, a place where the streetlights had been shot out years ago. Victor, the alpha of the Venom Fang pack, sat on a crate, cleaning his fingernails with a jagged combat knife. He was a lean, wiry man with scars running down his neck and a permanent sneer etched onto his face. "You failed," Victor said, not looking up. The massive figure standing in the shadows shifted uncomfortably. "The girl," the man grunted. "She is resourceful. She got him out before the Wolfsbane could stop his heart." "Resourceful," Victor mocked, spitting on the concrete floor. She's an Omega landscape gardener, you incompetent moron. She dragged the king out from under your nose. The man in the shadows stepped forward into the dim light. It was Darius, Oscar's head of security, the massive enforcer who had sat at the war table and called Anna bad luck. He trusts her, Darius said, his voice heavy with disdain. He's weak. He's distracted. He's letting a stray bitch sleep in the tower. The pack sees it. They want strength, Victor, not a lovesick puppy. And that is why you will be the new king, Victor said smoothly, standing up. Once Reaves is dead. The poison didn't work, Darius pointed out. He will be on high alert now. He'll purge the staff. Let him purge, Victor shrugged. He won't suspect you. You're his hammer. You're the loyal dog. Victor walked over to a table covered in blueprints. They weren't blueprints of a bank or a vault. They were the original schematics of the Iron Glove boxing gym. We changed tactics, Victor said, stabbing the knife into the paper. We stopped trying to kill the king directly. His armor is too thick. We go for the soft underbelly. The girl? Darius asked. No, Victor smiled, a cruel, toothy expression. If we touch the girl now, he locks her in a vault. We touch what connects her to the world. We isolate her. We make her run to us. He tapped the location of the gym. Burn it, Victor commanded. And bring me the old man, the uncle. Let's see how the king handles a hostage negotiation when his little mate is screaming for him to save her family. Darius nodded slowly. Consider it done. And Darius, Victor added, his eyes flashing yellow, if you fail me again, I won't use poison. I'll peel you. Chapter 17. The silence following the shrill ring of the secure line was absolute. It wasn't the peaceful silence of the morning. It was the vacuum left after an explosion. Oscar slowly placed the red receiver back onto the cradle. His hand was steady, but the knuckles were white. The chemical burns on his chest, angry red welts from the Wolfsbane, seemed to pulse in time with the vein throbbing in his temple. He turned to look at Anna. She was still sitting on the edge of the bed, her forest green velvet gown wrinkled and stained with sweat from the night she'd spent keeping him alive. Her hair was a chaotic mess of chestnut waves, and her hazel eyes were wide, filled with a softness that terrified him. She reached out, her fingers grazing his arm. Oscar? What's wrong? Oscar flinched. He pulled his arm away as if her touch were the poison, not the cure. Get dressed, he said. His voice was unrecognizable. Cold, flat, and devoid of the warmth that had been there seconds ago. My security detail will escort you to your uncle's gym within the hour. Anna blinked, confusion knitting her brow. What? Oscar, you're barely standing. I need you gone. Oscar cut her off, turning his back to her to stare at the heavy curtains. Last night was a mistake. A lapse in judgment caused by the toxin. Anna stood up, the velvet of her dress rustling. A mistake? You almost died. I dragged you into an elevator. I held you while you hallucinated about your parents. That wasn't a mistake, Oscar. That was us. There is no us, Oscar snarled, spinning around. The gold in his eyes was gone, replaced by a storm of impenetrable gray. Look at you, Anna. You are a landscape architect. You drive a yellow beetle. You play with a ferret. You do not belong in this world. I belong where I choose to be, Anna argued, her voice rising. She stepped closer, invading his space, fearless despite his size and his rage. "And I chose to stay. I chose to save you." "And look where that got you!" Oscar roared, the sound vibrating through the room. "Targeted, hunted, poisoned. You are a liability, Anna. I cannot lead this pack if I am constantly looking over my shoulder to make sure you aren't dying." It was a lie. He could lead, but he couldn't live if she died. The fear he had felt in the elevator, the sheer paralyzing terror of leaving her alone in a world of wolves, had broken something in him. He had to sever the limb to save the body. Anna recoiled as if he had slapped her. Her face paled, the hurt in her eyes hitting him like a punch to the gut. "A liability," she whispered. "Pack your things," Oscar said, looking past her, focusing on a spot on the wall. "Darius is waiting in the hall. Take the rat, and don't come back." Anna stared at him for a long moment. She didn't cry. She didn't beg. She simply straightened her spine, pulling the ruins of her dignity around her like armor. "Fine," she said, her voice turning to ice. "I'll go. But remember this, Oscar. You didn't push me away to save me. You pushed me away because you're a coward." She grabbed her clutch, Mochi still inside, and walked out the door. She didn't look back at the claw marks on the wall. She didn't look back at him. When the elevator doors dinged shut down the hall, Oscar fell to his knees. He didn't scream. He just sat there in the silence, the king of an empty tower, while the bond in his chest screamed in agony. Chapter 18. The rain in Iron City hadn't stopped for 7 days. It was a relentless, gray deluge that turned the streets into rivers of oil and sludge. Inside the iron glove, the rhythmic thud, thud, thud of the speed bag was the only sound. Anna was hitting it, but her rhythm was off. She wasn't wrapping her wrists properly, and her knuckles were raw. She was wearing one of Uncle Ben's old gray t-shirts, which hung on her frame like a tent, and a pair of gym shorts. She looked exhausted. Dark circles bruised the skin under her eyes, and she had lost weight. "You're drifting," Ben called out from the office door. He was holding a mug of coffee, watching her with a worried frown. "Your left guard is dropping." "I'm fine," Anna snapped, hitting the bag harder. Thud. "You've been hitting that bag for 4 hours, kid," Ben said gently. "Go home. Get some sleep." "I am home," Anna muttered. She was sleeping on a cot in the back office. She couldn't go back to her apartment. It felt too exposed, and she refused to go anywhere near the North District, where the Sanctum Tower pierced the skyline. Mochi was sitting on the ring post, his usual chaotic energy dampened. He hissed at Ben when the older man walked by. "Even the rat is depressed," Ben sighed. "Anna, you have to talk about it. What happened in that tower?" "Nothing happened," Anna said, stopping the bag with a vicious jab. "I did a job, I got paid, I left." "You left your heart there," Ben corrected. "I can smell the misery on you. It smells like burnt cedar." Anna flinched. She walked over to her water bottle, taking a long drink to hide her face. Every night she dreamed of the fever, of Oscar's skin burning against hers, of the almost kiss. And every morning she woke up to the cold reality that he considered her a liability. Meanwhile, at the Sanctum Tower, Oscar was destroying his private gym. He wasn't boxing, he was dismantling. He had kicked a heavy bag so hard the chain snapped, sending 300 pounds of sand crashing to the floor. Now he was doing pull-ups on a steel bar, his movements jerky and violent. His chest had healed, but the chemical burns had left silvery, spiderweb scars across his pectorals. They pulled tight with every rep. Sir? Oscar dropped from the bar, landing silently. He didn't look at the door. What is it, Darius? Darius stood in the doorway, looking impeccably professional. The reconstruction of the West Wing is behind schedule. The architects are asking for approval on the new security grid. Approve it, Oscar growled, grabbing a towel. They also asked if Miss Blair would be consulting, Darius said, his voice neutral. Oscar froze. The name hit him like a physical weight. No, like a boulder to the shoulders. Miss Blair is no longer employed by the Pact, Oscar said, his voice a low rumble. Do not speak her name in this tower again. Understood, Darius said, masking a smirk. And the threat assessment on the Venom Fang Pack? Find them, Oscar said, turning to the window to look out at the rain-soaked city. Burn them out. I want Victor's head on a spike by midnight. We're working on it, sir, Darius said, bowing slightly before backing out. Oscar stared at the rain. He felt hollow. The power, the money, the control, it all felt like ash in his mouth. He had saved her. He told himself that 1,000 times a day. He had saved her. So why did it feel like he had killed himself? Chapter 19. The smell hit Anna first. It wasn't the usual smell of the gym, old sweat and leather. It was sharper, sweet, chemical, and dangerous. Accelerant. It was 2 a.m. Anna was awake on the cot in the back office, staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Ben was asleep in his apartment upstairs. She sat up, sniffing the air. Mochi, curled at the foot of the cot, woke up instantly, chattering in a high-pitched panic. Quiet, Anna whispered, grabbing the ferret and shoving him into the pocket of her hoodie. She crept to the office door and cracked it open. The main gym floor was dark, but shadows were moving near the front entrance. She saw the glint of a gas can. Click. A lighter flared. No! Anna screamed, bursting out of the office. The man holding the lighter, a thug in a ski mask, turned and grinned. He dropped the lighter. Whoosh! The trail of gasoline ignited with a roar. The fire raced across the old wooden floorboards, climbing the walls, eating the boxing ring ropes. The gym, built of century-old timber and memories, went up like a matchbox. Ben! Anna screamed, turning to run toward the stairs. Glass shattered as 3 more men kicked in the back door. They weren't just arsonists. They were shifters. Their eyes glowed yellow in the firelight. "Get the girl!" one shouted. Anna grabbed a heavy iron dumbbell from the rack and hurled it. It caught the lead wolf in the knee. He howled, going down. But 2 more were coming. "Anna, run!" Uncle Ben appeared at the top of the stairs. He was in his boxers, holding a baseball bat wrapped in barbed wire. He didn't hesitate. He leaped over the banister, landing on the second attacker with a roar that shook the burning beams. "Uncle Ben!" "Go!" Ben yelled, swinging the bat. He cracked a wolf across the jaw, sending teeth flying. "Get out the window! Run!" He blocked the path of the attackers, a wall of beta fury holding back the tide. But there were too many. A massive wolf, the alpha, Victor, stepped through the flames. He backhanded Ben, sending the older man crashing into the burning trophy case. Ben went down and didn't get up. Victor grabbed him by the throat, lifting him off the ground. "Ben!" Anna screamed, starting forward. "Run, kid!" Ben wheezed, blood pouring from his mouth. "Run to him!" The ceiling groaned. A beam collapsed between Anna and the wolves, a curtain of fire separating them. She couldn't get to him. If she stayed, she burned, and Ben's sacrifice meant nothing. Sobbing, clutching Mochi to her chest, Anna turned and smashed the office window with a chair. She dove out into the rainy alleyway, cutting her arm on the glass, and sprinted. She didn't run to the police. She ran toward the only place in the city that could withstand fire. Chapter 20. The receptionist at Sanctum Tower was new. She looked up, startled, as the revolving doors spun violently. Anna Blair stormed into the pristine marble lobby. She looked like a wraith. She was covered in soot. Her oversized black hoodie was scorched and torn, revealing the gray t-shirt beneath. Her arm was bleeding, and her face was streaked with ash and tears. She smelled of smoke and visceral terror. "Ma'am, you can't be in here!" the receptionist squeaked, reaching for the panic button. "Don't touch it," Anna rasped. She didn't stop. She marched toward the private elevator. 2 security guards stepped in her path, beta wolves. They took one look at her eyes, hazel turning amber with rage, and hesitated. "Move," Anna growled. It wasn't an alpha command, but it carried the weight of someone who had nothing left to lose. "Let her through." The voice came from the mezzanine. Darius stood there, looking down with a mask of concern. "Let her up." The guard stepped aside. Anna slammed her hand on the button. The penthouse doors opened. Oscar was standing by the fireplace, a glass of whiskey in his hand. He looked up, his expression freezing when he saw her. "Anna?" He took a step forward, the glass slipping from his fingers and shattering on the floor. "You're hurt. You're bleeding." He reached for her. The instinct to comfort, to claim, to heal was overwhelming. Anna didn't melt into his arms. She stepped into his space, grabbed the lapels of his exorbitantly expensive silk robe, and pulled him down. Crack! She slapped him. It was a full-force, open-handed strike that echoed through the penthouse. It snapped Oscar's head to the side. Oscar didn't move. He didn't growl. He just stood there, his cheek turning red, looking at her with wide, shocked eyes. "You pushed me away!" Anna screamed, shoving his chest. "You said I was a liability. You said I was safer without you." Oscar stammered, his hand hovering over his cheek. "They burned it down, Oscar!" Anna sobbed, the anger crumbling into grief. "They burned the gym. They took Ben because I was alone, because you weren't there." Oscar's face went rigid. The shock evaporated, replaced by a cold, deadly realization. "Who?" he asked. His voice was no longer human. It was the sound of tectonic plates shifting. "Victor," Anna choked out, collapsing against him. "He took him." Oscar caught her. He wrapped his arms around her soot-stained body, pulling her tight against his chest, heedless of the dirt. He buried his face in her smoky hair, inhaling the scent of her terror. "Darius!" Oscar roared, the name shaking the glass walls. Darius appeared at the door instantly. "Sir?" Oscar looked up. His eyes were pure, molten gold. There was no hesitation, no fear, no pushing away left. There was only war. "Prepare the SUV," Oscar commanded, "and call the pack. We are going to kill them all." Chapter 21. The silence in the penthouse was shattered by the chime of a tablet. Darius stood by the granite island in the kitchen, his face a mask of professional concern. "It's a secure file transfer," he said, holding the device out. "From an untraceable server. Subject line, The Old Man." Oscar snatched the tablet. His chest, bare beneath the silk robe, heaved with the effort to control his breathing. The silvery, spiderweb scars from the Wolfsbane burned as his blood pressure spiked. Anna crowded in beside him, ignoring the soot smearing her face and the throbbing cut on her arm. She pressed play. The video was grainy, lit by a harsh overhead halogen. Uncle Ben was tied to a rusted steel chair. His face was a mess of bruises, one eye swollen shut, but he was still conscious. He spat a mouthful of blood at the camera. "Tell him to bring a shovel," Ben rasped, grinning through split lips. "He's gonna need it for his own grave." A hand entered the frame, Victor's hand, recognizable by the skull ring, and backhanded Ben. The video cut to black. Oscar growled, a sound that vibrated deep in his chest. "I will tear his head off." "Wait," Anna said, grabbing his wrist. Her hazel eyes were locked on the frozen final frame of the video. "Zoom in, top left corner." Oscar frowned but obeyed, pinching the screen. In the background, behind Ben's head, was a distinct steel truss structure, a series of X-braces riveted together in a repeating pattern. "That's a Pratt truss," Anna murmured, her architect brain overriding her panic. "It's a specific design used in the naval foundries built in the 1920s. And look at the brickwork. That scorching? That's from high-heat smelting." She looked up at Oscar. "He's not at the docks. He's at the old ironworks foundry on the riverbank. It's the only building in the East District with that specific truss load." Oscar stared at her, a flicker of awe cutting through his rage. "You're sure?" "I wrote my thesis on industrial restoration," Anna said, straightening up. "I know that building. It has a sub-basement that floods when the tide comes in. If Ben is down there—" "We move," Oscar commanded, turning to Darius. "Prep the tactical team. We hit the ironworks in 20 minutes. "I'm coming," Anna said. Oscar spun on her. "No, you stay here. It's a trap, Anna. They want you." "They have my family!" Anna yelled, stepping into his space. She grabbed the lapels of his robe again, her knuckles white. "I am not sitting in this tower while you fight my battles. I know the layout of that building. You don't. You'll walk right into a kill box without me." Oscar looked down at her. He saw the fire in her amber-flecked eyes. He saw the soot on her face and the blood on her arm. She wasn't a damsel. She was a partner. "Fine," he snarled. "But you stay on my 6. If I say run, you run." "Deal," Anna said. She ran to the guest room, not to hide, but to gear up. 10 minutes later, they were in the armory. Anna had swapped her ruined clothes for a pair of tactical cargo pants and a fitted black thermal shirt Oscar had thrown at her. She strapped a heavy silver whistle, Uncle Ben's gift, around her neck. "Take this," Oscar said, handing her a compact, high-voltage taser. "It won't stop an alpha, but it will slow them down." "And Mochi?" Anna asked, looking at the ferret, who was currently trying to climb Oscar's pant leg. "Darius stays here," Oscar said, his voice hard. "He coordinates the perimeter. He watches the rat." Darius nodded, his face impassive, though his eyes lingered on the map of the ironworks. "I'll keep the line open, sir. Good hunting." Oscar grabbed a heavy tactical vest, sliding it over his scarred chest. "Let's go." Chapter 22. The rain had turned into a deluge. The old ironworks foundry loomed out of the darkness like the skeleton of a dead leviathan, its rusted smokestacks piercing the gray sky. Oscar parked the armored SUV 3 blocks away, under the cover of a collapsed overpass. The engine ticked as it cooled. "No lights," Oscar whispered. "We go in on foot." They moved through the shadows of the scrapyard surrounding the foundry. Oscar took point, moving with a predator's grace that defied his size. Anna followed, her boots silent on the wet gravel. Her heart was hammering like a trapped bird against her ribs, but her mind was cold, analyzing the structure ahead. "The main entrance will be mined or guarded," Anna whispered, pointing to the massive double doors. "There's a coal chute on the north side. It leads directly to the boiler room. It bypasses the main floor." Oscar nodded. He trusted her. They circled the building. The coal chute was a rusted hatch near the ground. Oscar gripped the handle and ripped the corroded metal free with a sickening screech of tearing steel. He paused, listening. Nothing. The storm masked the noise. He dropped in first. Anna followed, sliding down the slick metal chute into the darkness. She landed in a pile of coal dust, coughing into her elbow. They were in the boiler room. It was vast, filled with the hulking shapes of dormant furnaces. The air smelled of wet rust and old ash. "Upstairs," Oscar signaled, his eyes flashing gold in the gloom. "I can smell them. 3 on the catwalk. Victor is on the foundry floor." They crept up the metal stairs. As they reached the landing, a heavy steel blast door separated the boiler room from the main floor. Oscar placed his hand on the wheel to turn it. Click! The sound of a magnetic lock engaging echoed through the door. "It's a trap!" Oscar roared, shoving Anna back. The blast door didn't open. Instead, a secondary shutter slammed down behind them, cutting off the stairs. They were in a corridor, and vents in the ceiling hissed. "Gas!" Oscar shouted. He didn't wait. He shifted. The transformation was visceral. Bones cracked and reshaped in a sickening symphony. Muscles swelled, shredding his tactical vest. In seconds, the man was gone, replaced by a massive, midnight black wolf with eyes of burning gold. The black wolf threw himself at the blast door, his claws tearing gouges into the steel. He hit it with the force of a wrecking ball. The metal groaned and buckled, creating a gap just wide enough for a human. He turned to Anna, snarling, pushing her toward the gap with his snout. "Go!" "I'm not leaving you!" Anna cried, coughing as the acrid gas filled the small space. The wolf snarled louder, snapping his jaws at her ankles. He was immune to the gas for longer. She would pass out in seconds. Anna understood. She squeezed through the jagged hole in the door, tumbling out onto the foundry floor. Behind her, the blast door slammed shut again, sealing the black wolf inside the corridor. "Oscar!" she screamed, pounding on the metal. A slow, mocking clap echoed from the darkness of the warehouse. "Welcome to the party, Miss Blair." Victor's voice dripped from the shadows. "You're just in time for the main event." Chapter 23. Anna spun around, her back to the sealed door. She was on the main foundry floor, a cavernous space crossed by rusted catwalks and chains hanging from the ceiling. In the center, illuminated by a single spotlight, Uncle Ben hung suspended by his wrists from a crane hook. He was unconscious. Victor stood beneath him. The alpha was shirtless, his body covered in tattoos, holding a jagged hunting knife. But he wasn't alone. 3 massive wolves, gray, mangy, and scarred, stepped out from behind the machinery. They circled Anna, their lips curled back to reveal yellowed fangs. "You brought a taser?" Victor laughed, spotting the device in her trembling hand. "Cute. Boys, tear her apart, but leave the face. I want the king to recognize her when he finally breaks out of that box." The first wolf lunged. Anna fired the taser. The probes hit the wolf in the shoulder, delivering 50,000 volts. The beast yelped and convulsed, crashing into a pile of scrap metal. But the taser was a one-shot weapon. She dropped it and ran. "Get her!" Victor roared. Anna sprinted toward the rusted staircase leading to the upper catwalks. The 2 remaining wolves were fast. She could hear their claws clicking on the concrete, gaining on her. She scrambled up the stairs, her breath tearing at her lungs. She reached the catwalk. It was narrow, swaying precariously. She looked down. 30 feet below, the concrete floor waited. The wolves bounded up the stairs. They were cornering her. Anna backed up until her heels hit the railing. She looked at the floorboards of the catwalk. Her architect's eye spotted it instantly. The rivets on this section were rusted through. The steel grating was barely holding on. Structural failure imminent. She looked at the wolves. They were heavy. If they pounced... Fear, hot and primal, flooded her system. But it wasn't the paralyzing fear she had felt in the alleyway. It was something else. It was the survival instinct of an animal backed into a corner. Her bones began to burn. It wasn't like the heat. It was sharper. It was a cracking, grinding pressure in her spine. She fell to her knees, screaming as her body began to rewrite itself. The wolves paused, confused by the sudden flare of power. An Omega shouldn't have this much pressure. Anna's scream turned into a howl. Her clothes, the tactical pants, the thermal shirt, shredded as her form shifted. Golden fur burst through her skin. Her jaw elongated. Her senses exploded outward, the smell of rust, rain, and enemy. She completed the shift. She wasn't a massive werewolf like Oscar. She was smaller, sleek, and golden brown. But she was fast. The gray wolves snarled and charged. Anna didn't fight them. She waited until they were midair, leaping for her throat. Then, she dropped flat against the grating. The combined weight of the 2 heavy males landing on the rusted section was too much. Snap! The catwalk gave way. The 2 wolves fell, howling, plunging 30 feet to smash against the concrete below. Anna scrambled backward, her claws digging into the remaining steel, pulling herself to safety on the stable section of the walkway. She stood up, shaking her golden fur, and looked down at Victor. Her amber eyes locked onto him. She bared her teeth and let out a sound that wasn't a roar, but a challenge. Chapter 24. The sound of metal rending echoed through the foundry. The blast door that had trapped Oscar exploded outward. The black wolf burst onto the floor, shaking debris from his massive shoulders. He was enraged, a nightmare made of shadow and muscle. He saw the broken catwalk. He saw the 2 wolves writhing on the ground. And he saw the golden wolf perched above, safe. Oscar roared, a sound that shook the dust from the rafters and turned his burning gold gaze on Victor. Victor didn't look afraid. He pulled a syringe from his belt and jammed it into his own neck. He roared as the serum, a cocktail of adrenaline and synthetic hormones, hit his bloodstream. He shifted. Victor's wolf was grotesque. Massive, hairless in patches, with muscles that looked tumorous. He was bigger than Oscar, fueled by the drug. The 2 alphas collided in the center of the room. It was a clash of titans. Oscar was disciplined, fighting with lethal precision. He went for the throat, snapping and tearing. But Victor was unnaturally strong. He shook Oscar off and slammed a massive paw into Oscar's side, sending the black wolf skidding across the concrete. Oscar scrambled up, but he was limping. The drug made Victor impervious to pain. Anna watched from the catwalk. She saw Oscar take another hit. Victor had him pinned, his jaws clamping down on Oscar's shoulder. She didn't wait. She leaped. It was a suicidal jump from 30 feet up. Anna aimed not for Victor's head, but for his hind legs. She hit the ground with a bone-jarring impact, tucking and rolling, then sprang at Victor's exposed Achilles tendon. She bit down, hard. Her jaws locked, and she thrashed her head, tearing the tendon. Victor howled, releasing Oscar as his back leg collapsed. He spun around to snap at the annoying golden gnat biting his ankle. That was the opening Oscar needed. The black wolf lunged. He didn't go for the shoulder this time. He went for the jugular. His jaws closed around Victor's throat. There was a sickening crunch of cartilage. Oscar didn't let go. He shook his head violently, tearing the life out of the rogue alpha. Victor went limp. Oscar dropped the body and stood over it, chest heaving. He turned to look at Anna. She was standing on 3 legs, favoring her front paw from the jump. She looked small next to him, her golden fur matted with dust. Oscar took a step toward her. He lowered his massive black head, nudging her gently with his snout. He whined, a soft, broken sound. "You fought." Anna nudged him back, licking a smear of blood from his muzzle. Above them, the crane groaned. Uncle Ben was still hanging there, waking up to the sight of 2 wolves, one black as night, one gold as dawn, standing over the corpse of his captor. "Well," Ben croaked, swaying in his chains. "That's one way to handle a business dispute." Chapter 25. The silence that followed the violence was heavy, broken only by the groaning of the rusted crane and the harsh, wet panting of 2 wolves. Oscar, the massive black wolf, limped toward the center of the foundry floor. His right shoulder was matted with blood where Victor's teeth had sunk in, and he favored his side. He looked at the golden wolf, Anna, who was sitting on her haunches, trembling. She held her left front paw off the concrete, whining softly. She looked at him, her amber eyes wide with residual adrenaline and confusion. It was her first shift. She was stuck. Oscar chuffed, a low, reassuring sound. He nudged her snout with his own, then stepped back. He closed his eyes, his massive chest heaving. With a sickening crack of bone and a wet tear of reshaping muscle, the wolf dissolved. It took 10 agonizing seconds. When it was over, Oscar Reaves stood naked in the dust, breathing hard, his body a map of sweat and fresh wounds. He didn't care about his nudity. He scanned the room, his alpha gaze landing on a pile of heavy canvas drop cloths near the painting station. He grabbed 2, tossing one over his waist and carrying the other to Anna. "Anna," he rasped, his voice wrecked from the growling. "You have to shift back. Focus on your hands. Remember your hands." The golden wolf whimpered, looking at her paws. She was terrified. The pain of the first shift was traumatic. The fear of the return was worse. Oscar knelt in the dust, ignoring the pain in his shoulder. He placed a hand on her golden head. "I've got you. It hurts, but only for a moment. Come back to me." Anna closed her eyes. She focused on his voice, the anchor in the storm. Her bones burned. She yelped as her form twisted, fur retreating, limbs elongating. It was visceral and messy, a biological restructuring that left her gasping, curled in a fetal position on the cold concrete. Oscar immediately draped the heavy canvas over her shivering body. She was covered in dust, sweat, and blood. She looked up at him, her teeth chattering. I bit him," she whispered, looking at her hands as if they didn't belong to her. "I tore his tendon." "You were magnificent," Oscar murmured, scooping her up into his arms, canvas and all. He carried her to the control panel of the crane. "But we aren't done. Can you stand?" "Yes," Anna lied, leaning heavily against the rusted console. Her ankle, the human equivalent of her injured paw, was throbbing, likely sprained. Oscar worked the levers. The gears shrieked and the chain lowered. Uncle Ben descended slowly, swaying until his feet touched the floor. They rushed to him. Oscar used a discarded knife from the floor to slice the zip ties binding Ben's wrists. The old boxer slumped into Oscar's arms. His face was a swollen ruin, one eye completely shut, but the other cracked open. He looked at Oscar, naked except for a tarp, and then at Anna, wrapped in canvas. "You two," Ben wheezed, coughing up a speck of blood, "are the worst dressed rescuers I have ever seen." Anna let out a sob that turned into a laugh, burying her face in Ben's shoulder. "We had a wardrobe malfunction." "Let's get out of here," Oscar said, his eyes darkening as he heard sirens in the distance. "My extraction team is 3 minutes out. I want us gone before the police start asking questions about the giant wolf bite in Victor's neck." Oscar supported Ben, taking the majority of the man's weight, while Anna limped beside them. They exited through the blown-out loading bay, just as a convoy of black SUVs screeched into the lot. Darius stepped out of the lead vehicle. He stopped when he saw them. Oscar, bloodied but alive. Victor nowhere to be seen. For a split second, a look of pure, cold calculation crossed Darius's face. "Sir," Darius said, smoothing his expression into one of relief. "Target neutralized?" Oscar looked at his head of security. He saw the hesitation. He saw the lack of surprise. But right now, with Anna shivering and Ben bleeding, he chose the tactical retreat. "Burn the building," Oscar commanded, helping Ben into the back seat. "Leave nothing but ash." Chapter 26. The ride back to the Sanctum Tower was silent, a vacuum of exhaustion. Ben had been dropped off at the private medical wing on the lower levels, fussing that he just needed an ice pack and a whiskey. Now, inside the penthouse, the adrenaline crash hit Anna like a sledgehammer. She stood in the center of the master bathroom, the canvas dropcloth pooling at her feet. She was caked in foundry dust, grease, and dried blood. She caught her reflection in the mirror, wild hair, bruised skin, eyes burning with a fierce golden light that hadn't fully faded. The shower door opened. Oscar stood there. He had wrapped a towel around his waist, but his chest was bare, revealing the fresh, jagged puncture wounds on his shoulder and the older, silvery scars from the Wolfsbane. "Let me," he said softly. He didn't wait for permission. He turned on the water, adjusting the temperature until it was warm, steam filling the massive stone enclosure. He led her in. It wasn't sexual. It was worship. Oscar took a sponge and gently washed the soot from her back. He was careful with her sprained ankle, supporting her weight so she didn't have to stand on it. The water ran gray at first, swirling down the drain, taking the horror of the foundry with it. "You jumped," Oscar said, his voice thick with emotion. He was kneeling now, washing the grime from her legs. "From the catwalk. You could have died." "You were losing," Anna said, her hand resting on his wet hair. "I wasn't going to let him take you. You're mine." The words hung in the steam, heavy and absolute. Oscar froze. He looked up, water dripping from his lashes. His eyes were no longer gray. They were molten gold. The wolf was at the surface, recognizing the claim. He stood up, towering over her, water sluicing down his powerful frame. "Say it again." "You are mine," Anna whispered, stepping into him. She pressed her palm against his scarred chest, feeling the thunderous beat of his heart. And I am yours. No more pushing away. No more walls. Oscar made a low, guttural sound and crushed her mouth to his. The kiss wasn't gentle. It was desperate, a collision of two souls that had narrowly escaped death. He lifted her effortlessly, pinning her against the warm stone tiles. Anna wrapped her legs around his waist, needing to be closer, needing to erase the space between them. The bond snapped into place with the force of a physical blow. It was a rush of warmth, safety, and absolute belonging that flooded their minds. It wasn't just physical, it was a tethering of spirits. Oscar buried his face in the crook of her neck, inhaling the scent of wild jasmine and rain, now clean and vibrant. He nipped at the sensitive skin there, not breaking blood, but marking her, claiming her. "My queen," he groaned against her skin. "My chaos." Anna arched into him, tears mixing with the spray of the shower. She wasn't lonely anymore. She wasn't the landscape architect trying to prove she didn't need anyone. She was home. They moved to the bedroom, leaving wet footprints on the hardwood. The night that followed was a blur of tenderness and fierce passion, a reaffirmation of life in the face of the death they had just dealt. Chapter 27, 3 months later. The site of the Iron Glove was buzzing with activity. The charred remains of the old timber frame were gone. In its place, steel girders rose into the sky, outlining a structure that was modern yet industrial. It was going to be fireproof, flood-proof, and, if Anna had her way, idiot-proof. Anna stood by a folding table covered in blueprints, wearing a white hard hat and her signature denim overalls. She pointed a rolled-up schematic at the foreman. "No," she said firmly. "I said reinforced polycarbonate for the skylights, not standard glass. If a werewolf is thrown through that window, I don't want it shattering. Do you know how much it costs to pick glass out of fur?" The foreman blinked. Right. Polycarbonate. Got it." "Micromanaging?" a deep voice rumbled behind her. Anna smiled, turning around. Oscar stood there. He looked different than he had 3 months ago. He was still wearing a suit, obscenely expensive, charcoal gray, but he wasn't wearing a tie. His top button was undone. He looked relaxed. "It's not micromanaging," Anna corrected, kissing his cheek. "It's ensuring structural integrity. How was the council meeting?" "Quiet," Oscar said, a dark satisfaction in his tone. "Since Darius retired, the new security protocols are running smoothly." Darius's retirement had involved a one-way trip to a very deep hole in the desert after Oscar found the encrypted comms logs, but they didn't talk about that in polite company. "Speaking of security," Oscar said, reaching into his pocket, "have you seen my ring?" Anna sighed. "Check the ferret." Oscar looked down. Mochi was currently digging in a pile of sand near the concrete mixer. The ferret looked up, guilt written all over his bandit-masked face. Something shiny glinted in the sand. Oscar walked over. He didn't roar. He didn't threaten to turn the rodent into a keychain. He crouched down, disregarding the dust on his trousers. "Mochi," Oscar said sternly. "That is the royal signet of the Shadow Pact. It is used to seal treaties and authorize wars. It is not a shiny rock." Mochi chattered defiantly and tried to bury the ring deeper. Oscar sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. He reached out, gently wrestling the platinum ring from the ferret's claws. Mochi hissed. "Fine," Oscar muttered. He reached into his other pocket and pulled out a shiny, silver-plated bolt he had picked up from the construction site. Trade. Mochi's eyes widened. He dropped the ring and snatched the bolt, scampering away to hide his new treasure. Oscar stood up, wiping the ring on his shirt. He looked at Anna, who was trying desperately not to laugh. "He negotiates better than some of my generals," Oscar admitted, sliding the ring back on his finger. "He likes you," Anna grinned. "You're finally part of the pack." "I am the king," Oscar grumbled, wrapping an arm around her waist. "I should not be bartering with a weasel." "Ferret," Anna corrected, leaning her head on his shoulder. "And you love him." "I tolerate him," Oscar lied. "Because he makes you smile." Chapter 28. The sun was setting over Oak Haven City, painting the skyline in hues of bruised purple and gold. The air was crisp, smelling of autumn leaves and the distant salt of the ocean. A bright canary yellow shape zipped down the coastal highway. Bumble was back. The 2012 Volkswagen Beetle had been resurrected. The dented panels had been replaced. The slashed tires were brand new. The engine purred with a customized efficiency that suggested a certain Alpha King had paid a private mechanic to swap the stock parts for something with a little more horsepower. Anna drove, her windows down, the wind whipping her chestnut hair around her face. She felt light. The weight of the past, the trauma of her old pack, the fear of the heat, the terror of the foundry, had dissolved into the rearview mirror. In the passenger seat, Oscar Reaves looked comically large. His knees were pressed against the glove box, his broad shoulders barely fit within the confines of the compact car. He looked ridiculous. He looked happy. Mochi was asleep on the dashboard, curled up on a non-slip mat Anna had installed specifically for him. "You know," Oscar said, adjusting his grip on the grab handle as Anna took a curve a little too fast, "the SUV has heated seats, and legroom, and armor plating." "Bumble has character," Anna countered, shifting gears. "And he's yellow. You can't be sad in a yellow car. It's scientifically impossible." "I'll take your word for it," Oscar said dryly. He looked over at her. The setting sun caught the gold flecks in her hazel eyes. She wasn't hiding anymore. She wasn't running. She was driving her own car, living her own life, with the most powerful wolf in the city crammed into her passenger seat, simply because he wanted to be near her. He reached over, covering her hand on the gear stick with his own. His platinum ring clicked against the plastic knob. "Where are we going?" Oscar asked. "Uncle Ben wants to test the new ring ropes," Anna said. "He said if you don't show up, he's going to tell the pack you're dodging him." Oscar chuckled, a deep rumble that vibrated through the small car. "The old man is pushing his luck." "He's family," Anna smiled. "You're family too now." Oscar squeezed her hand. Family. The word didn't taste like ash anymore. It tasted like jasmine and rain. "Drive fast, Anna," Oscar said, leaning back and closing his eyes, content in the cramped yellow bubble. "We have a kingdom to run." Anna grinned and floored the accelerator. Bumble shot forward, a streak of yellow light chasing the horizon. The end. Quick favor! Don't go anywhere yet. If you thought Anna was brave for slapping the Alpha King across the face in his own penthouse, wait until you meet the heroine in this next story on your screen. You have to hear this disaster unfold. Click the video on your screen right now. It is absolutely unhinged.